Hello, I'm a spinning grey cube and I'd like to talk to you today about crime in the UK and the fact that according to some measures at least, it's on the increase. But I'd like to start with a warning, or more precisely, the precise opposite of a warning. It is probably still safe to leave your house. Being the victim of a crime may well be horrible, but don't spend your time worrying about it if it hasn't happened, especially if the source of that worry is the news media. The media always exaggerates the prevalence of crime. Some parts of the media are more responsible than others, but ultimately crime sells newspapers and it puts bums on seats in front of the evening news. Because of this, you've got as much chance of the news media industry giving a realistic weight to crime reporting as you have of seeing the film industry make a Die Hard movie about the 5 years John McClane spends at a desk filling out paperwork to explain the property damage he caused in the last Die Hard movie. Now, 60 people have been murdered in London this year so far, but there are nearly 9 million people in London who are still alive. And if Londoners are even half as insufferable as everyone in the rest of the country thinks they are, then that's evidence of a pretty tolerant and peaceful city. The British Crime Survey reports that overall crime is still down year on year and has been every year since 1995, although the rate of decline has been reduced, possibly due to year-on-year cuts to police funding since 2010. Police statistics, on the other hand, suggest that crime, especially violent crime, is now on the increase. And if the government is unwilling to spend more money on the police, then it's time for some blue sky thinking. Yeah, I'm in Yorkshire, that's the best I could do. So, new ideas anyway, and that is precisely what I'm about to present here. Research has shown a clear link between violent crime and violent video games. That is, violent crime rates consistently drop when new releases and sales of violent video games are at their peak. Similarly, there's been a steady decrease in crime across the Western world across the decades as video games have become a more mainstream form of entertainment, and as the level of graphic violence in the most extreme of them has increased. Now granted, the graphic violence has mostly only increased due to an improvement in graphics. In 1987, Nemesis the Warlock on the ZX Spectrum was a platform game that allowed you to reach parts of the level only by stacking up the corpses of your enemies and jumping on them. But it looked like this. The latest God of War game, on the other hand, well, I don't know, I haven't played it, but I'm happy it exists because of the kind of people it keeps off the streets. I played God of War 3 and I'm pretty certain that at least a couple of the people in the development team for that one would have been serial killers had they been unemployed. Now, as I say, I haven't played the new God of War game. I could be mischaracterising it. I've heard it's somewhat of a reboot, presumably because at this point in the series, Kratos, the game's protagonist, has murdered so many people that the only other way to move the franchise forward would be if he started killing chimpanzees and orangutans and genociding his way back down the tree of life towards invertebrates. So, violent video games reduce violence in the rest of society, and this is because violent people like violent video games, and video games tend to keep those violent people off the streets. It's a good thing there's no murder involved in Pokemon Go, really. My suggestion, therefore, is this: reduce crime by buying everybody who is unemployed a games console. We can't just give them to convicted criminals, that would be rewarding crime, so instead we target the people with the most time and incentive to turn to crime. Now, I realise that basic maths is not popular in politics these days, but I have actually costed this. Current cost is £230 for a basic Xbox One, £250 for a PS4, and I'm guessing probably less than either of those prices if we get Sony and Microsoft to bid against each other. Sony and Microsoft are tech companies, and tech companies tend to be smart enough to value market share and installed user base over short-term profits, so I think we should be able to get a very good deal on that. Add in a suitably macabre software bundle and you should be able to kit out the UK's 1.46 million current unemployed with change from about £500 million. Not cheap, but to compare, we currently spend about 16 billion a year on police, prisons, courts, etc. Possibly we can also use that software bundle as an opportunity to promote the thriving British violent video games industry too, over those nasty foreign franchises like Mario and Zelda. Anyway, it's 500 million quid. I'm sure we can get that off the magic money tree. It's only half the cost of buying an election with a bribe to the DUP. I'm not sure how many airstrikes on Syria you could buy for that, but should we really be spending the money of British taxpayers on foreign psychopaths in the Middle East when British psychopaths are going without? Now, obviously, this is just an idea. I'm just putting it out there. It might not work. It probably won't work. It's really just pretty facetious. At best, it requires more research to determine its viability. But as an unemployed person myself at the moment, I'm willing to do my bit to contribute to that research. So for the sake of social science, I make you this offer. If you, my YouTube subscribers, all 3 of you, between you club together and purchase me a PS4 and a copy of the new God of War game, I in turn solemnly promise not to murder any of you in your sleep. We'll see how that social experiment goes, and then we'll take it from there. Like and subscribe if you want to hear any more of my stupid, ill-informed and possibly offensive ideas.